Okay, good morning, everyone. Welcome to lecture 21 of Grid and Cloud Computing. So, in this lecture, we'll continue our discussion on parallel and distributed programming paradigm. Last class, I told you about MapReduce, and we solved two problems using MapReduce. And the detailed example we have discussed in the last class. In this class, I will tell you the theoretical aspects. That means what are the problems that can be solved using MapReduce, and what are the basic steps that you have to follow if you want to uh, solve a particular problem in the MapReduce, right? The first one is the strategies to solve MapReduce problem. Let us discuss the first problem. First problem says counting the number of occurrences of each word in a collection of the documents. You are given with a set of document. Okay, you are given with a set of document. Okay, and these document contains various words, right, in a particular language. Let it be English. What is your objective? Your objective is to count the number of occurrences of each word. Like in the previous example, you are calculating ignore is repeated how many times. Okay, ignores is repeated how many times, right? Similarly, each and every word that are present in these documents, they are occurrences you have to find. So if this is the problem, okay, already we solved this particular problem. How we have solved? We have considered the unique key as each word. Each and every word, ignore is a unique key, and ignores is also a unique key. So we have taken key as each and every individual word that are present in these documents. What is the intermediate value? Intermediate value is nothing but how many times each and every word is repeated. Like let's say ignore is repeated 2 times, ignores is repeated, let's say 3 times. Just an example. So you can see this is your key and this is your value. And you know in MapReduce everything is in the form of key and value, right? So if the problem is like this, then you have to determine which one you will take as a key and which one you will take as a value. Okay, come to the second one. The second problem is counting the number of occurrences of words having the same size. Okay, same size or same number of letters, okay, in a collection of document. For example, somebody has written a word XYZ, you have written another word ABC, right? So what is this saying? Counting the number of occurrences of word having the same size. You see the size of this word is 3 letter. The size of this word is also 3 letter. So you can say 3 number of letters are there in both the words, right? Like that you have given with a collection of document like problem 1. What you have to determine? You have to count that XYZ and ABC both are belongs to same group. Means you can say 3 letter word is, there is 2 words with 3, the length of the word is 3. Like in this case, you know that XYZ ABC are the 2 words, so you can say 3 letter word is, the occurrences is 2. So if you solve this particular problem, then what you can say, the unique key is nothing but your word, but intermediate key is nothing but the size of the word. Size of the word means you can say size of the word is, here it is 3, ABC is 3. Then finally you will, what you will do, you will accumulate how many 3 letter words are there, how many 4 letter words are there, right? Initially you will take XYZ is 3, ABC is 3, okay, or you will take CD is 2, okay. Initially you will take like this, then you will accumulate it. because you have to find the number of occurrences of words having the same size or same number of letters. That problem also can be solved using MapReduce. So these problems you try. I'll introduce 3 problems. All the 3 problems you try to implement in your lab class. Come to the third one. Third one is saying counting the number of occurrences of anagram in a collection of document. What do you mean by this word anagram? Anagram is the word, okay, with the same set of letters but in a different order. For example, you are writing XYZ, somebody is writing YXZ, somebody is writing ZXY. All these words are same. So one of the very good example is given here. If you see the word English word listen and silent, you check L is repeated one time, I is repeated one time, S is repeated one time, T is repeated one time, E is repeated one time, and N is repeated one time. So these 2 words are called as your anagram. So if you would like to implement this problem in MapReduce, so you have to determine what is the key. So key here you can take is alphabetically sorted sequence of letter for each word. If I sort this word alphabetically means you have to follow A to Z order. Whichever letter is coming first, you have to keep like this. For example, out of these words LISTEN, the first letter in the A to Z order, it is coming E. The second letter is I. Third letter is L. Fourth letter is N. Then S. Then T. Similarly, if you arrange the silent, the alphabets used in the silent in A to Z order, it is coming E first, E, then I, then L, then N, then S and T. Now you see both listen and silent, if you arrange them in the alphabetical order, then both are same. So that you have to consider as a key. And what is your value? Value is nothing but number of occurrences. How many times these words are repeated? For example, if listen and silent is there, then it will say the number of occurrences 2. Because listen sequence and silent sequence is same. That problem also you can solve using MapReduce. Okay. So these are the problems you have to practice in your lab class. Now come to MapReduce actual data and control flow. Right? You know that MapReduce framework handles all partitioning, mapping, synchronization, communication, and scheduling, everything. Okay. So in the form of either a data flow or a control flow. Right? So now MapReduce is following the following steps. We'll go in detail, although we have discussed in a problem matter or in illustration, we have seen what are the process is followed in the MapReduce, but theoretically I am telling you. The very first step is called as your data partitioning. I told you partitioning is of 2 types. One is data partitioning, another is called computation partitioning. So what MapReduce is doing? The MapReduce library splits the input file, whatever input file you have given, okay, generally it is stored in a Google file system, into M pieces. Okay, partitioning means what? You are dividing your work into multiple parts. Okay, that is the first work of first step, that is called your data partitioning. Okay, and these M pieces, why you are dividing into M pieces? Because that corresponds to the number of map tasks. Number of map tasks is M, that's why I am dividing into M pieces. The second step is called as your computational partitioning. In computational partitioning, the MapReduce library generates copies of a user program using a system call that is called as fork. In operating system, you have seen this system call that is called as fork. What fork is doing? Fork is creating a child process. If you have a parent process, then if you have written fork, then the same program is copied to the child process. That's why in computational partitioning, MapReduce generates multiple copies of the user program, because same copy of the user program you have to provide to M map task. Okay, so this system call we are calling to copy the program containing the map and reduce function. So this program which you are copying using this fork system call consists of your map and reduce function, so that once you have taken the copy you can distribute. This is same as you have a class node, you are taking 60 copies because your class strength is 60, because you have to distribute these 60 copies to 60 students. Same thing. Third one is determining the master and worker. So what you are doing here, one of the copies of the user program becomes master. You have taken multiple copies. Okay, in a class, let's say there is a teacher and you have 60 students. So what you will do, total number of copies you will take 61. And one copy you will give to the teacher and 60 copy you will distribute it among the students. That's why it is saying one of the copies of the user program becomes the master and rest becomes your worker. When students they want to do some work using that material, so they are treated as a workers, right? And the master picks the ideal worker. If some students are busy in some other work, then teacher selects the students. Okay, that is the master node is selecting the ideal worker in the technical term and assigns the map and reduce tasks to them. Okay, so that they can solve the work. And this the next steps, that is step 4 to step 7, describe for the map worker. Once map worker receives the data, what they are going to do. The fourth step, that is starting from the map worker, that is nothing but reading the input data, or we call it a data distribution. Here what we are doing, each map worker reads its corresponding portion of the input data. You have circulated everything. So what happened? Whichever work you have assigned to the map worker, that map worker is going to solve that one. Okay? And map worker, once it receives the input data, what it will do? It sends to the map function. Right? Although a map worker may run more than one map function. See, one map worker consists of, you can assign some work to the map worker, but that map worker may run more than one map function. So you can say inside a map worker you have multiple map functions. So if you are getting the input data, that input data you can work in more than one map function. Or while you are partitioning, if two partition is given to this map worker, then that map worker may run that thing in the map function. That is also possible. Okay. So therefore, it is assigned more than one input data split. That I am saying. Instead of giving a single partition to each and every node, what we are doing, you can also give more than one data. Okay. So it is having more than one map function and it can run that thing. Okay. The fifth one is called as your map function. You know that in map function you are maintaining key value pair, right? And produce as an intermediate key value pair. If you are taking this as a K1 V1 and intermediate state, you take K2 V2, right? The third step we have seen, that is a combiner function. So this function, what combiner function is doing, runs the same code written by the users for the reduce function. Using the fork system call, what you are doing, you are creating multiple copies. That multiple copies consist of your map function as well as your reduce function. So combiner function also doing the same thing using your reduce function. It merges the local data of each map worker. Okay, then map reduce framework will sort and group the local data on each web worker if the user invokes the combiner function. So all you have multiple map functions, so they are generating the intermediate key value pairs. That's why what you are doing, you are doing the sorting and grouping. Sorting will give you the arranging of the data in a particular order. Grouping will grouping will create a list to collect the value of the same key. For example, you have seen the silent and listen. Both are same, right? If you are arranged in the alphabetical order, so they need to group into the same group, right? They both listen and silent should be present in the same group. That is the grouping part, which is done by the combiner, right? The next step is your partitioning function. So what you are doing here, you have intermediate key value pair, right? You have intermediate key value pair, just I told you, that is K2, B2. What you are going to do, with identical keys are grouped together. That is silent and listen are grouped together, because what is the reason? Because it should be processed by only one reduce function. The similar key, okay, like silent and listen, should be provided to the same reduce function in order to generate the final result. If some other word is there, XYZ and YZX, that is given to another reduce function in order to generate the result. Okay, so this intermediate key value pairs produced by each map worker are partitioned into R regions. R, where R is the nothing but the number of reduced tasks. Okay, if the same key is there, then you put in the same region. If different key is there, then you present in the different region. Like that, we assume that if R regions are there, that is nothing but the number of reduced tasks. Okay, and how you are going to implement it? Okay, partitioning function ensure that this key value pair with identical keys are stored in the same region. Okay, that is silent and listen should be present in the same region. XYZ, YZX present should be present in the same region. So if you want to implement this partitioning function, what you can do? You can use whatever you have studied in the data structure hash function. Okay, that is nothing but hash key modulus of R. Like if a value is coming, suppose your mode is 10, right? Suppose the value is 73. You know 73 modulus 10 is 3, right? So I will give to the third region. If it is 88 is coming, 88 modulus of 10, then what will happen? 8 will come. So I will send to 8th region and so on. Right? In this way, you can implement, okay, the map reduce. In this partitioning function, you can implement using the hash function that forwards the data into a particular region. It may happen that, for example, 63 is also coming. So 63 mod 10 is nothing but your 3. So it is assigned to the same region. So you can see 63 and 73 is assigned to the region number 3. The next step is synchronization. So MapReduce applies a very simple synchronization policy to coordinate map worker with reduce worker. So you have a map function, you have a reduce function, right? So you have to coordinate between them. So that is called as a synchronization. Otherwise, what happens that if synchronization will be not be there, then you may face problem, right? Now you can see here, this is a very good example which summarizes what we discussed. There is a different partitioning functions are there. They are having different values like 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3 in each and every partitioning function. So in order to execute the similar data in the same region, we are collecting one of all the partitioning functions and keeping in the same reduce worker, right? These are the map workers, but whatever data they have, one is common for all, right? Like silent word is present in this word file, listen word is present here, again silent word is present here, listen word is present here. So what do you have to do? The similar kind of work, okay, with the same key value, you have to assign to the reduce worker, so that the reduce worker will combine it and produce the result. Okay, so this is the coordination between your map worker and your reduce worker, right? Now I'll give another example to clear your idea. Here you can see it is a more detailed view. In the previous it is an abstract view. It is a more detailed view. You can see map workers are there, multiple map workers are there. Then what we have done, inside I told you, inside a map worker you have multiple map function. So the data is whatever data is given by the map reduce, right? So one unit may contain multiple data. Like you can see here, there is a two data partition is there, D1, D2. And in this case, you have three partition, data 1, data 2, data 3, like this. Then one data partition you will assign to your map function. Okay, that map function, what it will do, it is forming the pairs. That is saying key 1 is repeated once, key 2 is repeated once, again key 1 is repeated once, key 3 is repeated once. Then what you are doing, you are applying sorting and grouping, and you are using a combiner function, so that all the values of k1 can be combined into one place, all the values of k2 is combined to one place, k3 is combined to one place. Then you are applying the partitioning function, so that you can divide the data based upon the region. For that, you can use the hash function, right? So similarly, you can also do the same process in other map worker. After that, you have to assign the similar kind of work with the same key value to the reduce function. You can see the K2, K3, K3 here, and K4, K3, they are assigned to the same reduce. Say same reduce worker that is present in region 1. Similarly, the second work, that is K1B, K1 and its occurrences, K5 and K1 its occurrences. Okay, and here nothing is there, so they are assigned to region 2 of the reduce worker. And after receiving the data in a particular region, what the reduce worker is doing, it is performing the sorting and grouping. Okay, all the K2 values are kept in one place, all the K3 values are placed in one place, all the K4 values are present in one place. Like this, in this reduce worker, it is responsible for K1, it is collecting K1 as well as K5, then apply a reduce function and generates the final result. So this is the process is in a more detailed view is followed by the map reduce. Okay. Now come to the ninth step. That is called as your communication. So reduce worker I. So you have seen there are multiple reduce worker here. Here reduce worker 1 is there, reduce worker 2 is there. So reduce worker I already notified of the location region I of all map worker, and it uses a remote procedure call, which we call as RPC, to read the data from the respective region of all map worker. So you have seen here, we are collecting the data from various map worker and we are putting in the same region. That is the responsibility of the communication. So if you see, all reduce worker read the data from all map worker. So the relationship between these workers to reduce workers to the map worker, you can say it is an all-to-all communication. But the main problem with this is sometimes it faces network congestion, right? If all are communicating, you can see there are so many arrows are there which represent the communication. If you see in that angle, then you can say network congestion may happen. So what is the solution? The solution is nothing but the data transfer module you have to propose to schedule the data transfer independently. So there is a data transfer module which was proposed in MapReduce, right, to schedule the data transfer independently so that it should not conflict with other communication. Now we'll see another two steps, that is step 10 and step 11, which correspond to our reduce worker domain. So reduce also what it is doing, it is applying the sorting and grouping. Here you can see the sorting and grouping. So what I can say here, the reduce worker groups the intermediate key value pair. Whatever intermediate key value were given by the various mapper or various map function or map worker, by sorting the data based upon their keys and grouping all occurrences of the identical key. That is the responsibility of the sorting and grouping. The next one is your reduce function. What we are doing here, the reduce function or the reduce worker iterates over a grouped key value pair, and for each key, unique key, it sends the key and corresponding value to the reduce functions. After collecting everything, you are grouping, right? And you are collecting how many times a particular word is repeated. Then this function processes its input data and stores the output results in a predetermined files of the user program. In which file you will write the result, that is also fixed. Which file you are going to write the results, because you are taking a set of files as input and you have to produce one output file. So the location of the files, everything is known to the reduce function. So in this way, you have to follow the 11-step process in order to solve the problem 1 to problem 3, what we discussed. So lab class, please go through it. If you are facing any problem, you please tell me. Now you can see here, this is your control flow implementation of MapReduce functionality, in which also you can see the input is a user program. I'll tell you in overall sense. You are given with a user program. Then what you are doing, you are applying a system called fork. If you are writing a system called fork, what you are doing, you are taking the copy of the same user program. Okay. And a group of user program you are calling as your map function, and a group of worker you are calling as a reduce function. And master also contains a copy of the same user program and controls everything. So what master is doing? Master is assigning some work to the map task, and master is also assigning something to the reduce task. And I told you, a set of map worker and set of reduce worker, they are communicating each other. Their communication is all to all communication, right? And you can see, in order to work in a particular user program, each and every map worker requires an input file. So you can see, each map function is receives a input file, that is nothing but a read operation. And each and every reduce function is collecting the results of the intermediate values generated by this map worker. Okay, and they are collecting the result and they are writing into various files, right? Or in a single file also you can write. But as per your requirement, if you have multiple output files, then you can write in the multiple output files. So this is the process what we are following. Okay. So you can say this is the exact order of processing control in the MapReduce system. Okay, contrasting to the previous one, which is a data flow. The previous one is a data flow, right? If you see, this is a data flow, but this one is the control flow, right? Now let us discuss. Okay, before going to that, let us take a poll. So please answer this question. Which one is not a step of MapReduce? Whatever step we have discussed, which one is not a step of MapReduce? We have seen 11-step process. Which one is not a step of MapReduce? You have 30 seconds left. Last 10 seconds. Which one is the correct answer? Can anybody say?
Installing MapReduce.
Exactly. Okay, installing MapReduce, because the first step is data partition, second step is computation partition, and in between map function, reduce function, combiner function is coming, right? The correct answer is installing MapReduce. It is not a step, right? Now come to compute data affinity, right? So the MapReduce software framework was first proposed and implemented by Google, right? So in early days, if you see, the first implementation was coded in C, right? At that time, C was a very popular language. Nowadays you are using Python or some advanced language. So that implementation takes the advantages of the Google file system. Okay, as its underlying layer. So they have taken Google file system as their underlying layer. So MapReduce could perfectly adapt itself to the Google file system. GFS, what GFS is doing, this Google file system? GFS is a distributed file system where files are divided into fixed size block. Because you know that in MapReduce you are doing the partitioning. Similarly, GFS is also a distributed file system where what you are doing, you are dividing the files into fixed size blocks. And blocks are distributed and stored on the cluster nodes. So if you have a cluster, you have a set of nodes and you have to distribute these chunks to various nodes. And if you see, the default size of the GFS is 64 MB. Okay, the default size of each and every block where you want to partition, that is 64 MB. Okay, the next one is the twister and iterative MapReduce. So these are the two, you can say, competitor of our MapReduce. So there are two major sources of parallel overhead are load imbalance and communication. First one, you can see, while you are distributing the work, if the work, whatever you are assigning to the map, if they are having 64 MB, but if you go for this computation, it takes more time. Right? It may happen, I am giving a 64 MB to one computer system, I am giving another 64 MB to another system. The amount of work in this 64 MB system is more. The amount of work in this 64 MB system is less. It depends upon what is the instruction. So what happened? The first problem occur, or the overhead happens due to this load imbalance problem. One computer is getting more load, or you are giving two blocks to a single computer and one block to another computer system. Now there is a load imbalance. So that is a problem. Second one is communication is also a problem. So these are the two problems identified, which is, we can say, the major sources of the parallel overhead. So what you can do, what is the solution? The solution is that what we are doing here is a solution. We are comparing the MapReduce with MPI to check whether MPI can perform these things in a better way or not. Because MPI, I told you, is a message passing interface. It is a very popular programming for parallel programming, right? Or parallel computation. It is very popular. So if you compare this MapReduce with MPI, so what I can say, MapReduce reads and writes via files. So we have seen that input is a file, output is a file in the MapReduce. But whenever you go for MPI, MPI transfer the information directly between the networks. Okay, directly between nodes over the network. Okay, so MPI is dealing with the network, but what happened in the network? Various nodes are there. So these nodes will get some information from the one centralized unit, right? So MPI transfers such information to the nodes, but in MapReduce, we are writing and reading the things in the files. That's why if you see here, MPI does not transfer all data from node to node, but just the amount needed to update information. All the data it is not transferring. The data which is required to update some information, that only transfer. That's why MPI flow is called as your delta flow, okay, and MapReduce is called as your full data flow. In that way, MPI is better than the MapReduce, because MapReduce you need to give the data. You have to read and write everything with the files, so it is a overhead. So you can address also some of the performance issues. One of the performance issues you can see here, stream information between steps without writing the intermediate step to disk. Stream information between steps means you are sending the data from one node to another node without writing that into any intermediate steps. That is one of the solution. But what happens if the failure occur? Then you have to start from the beginning. That is the problem. The second one is use long running threads or processes to communicate the delta flow. Long running thread means long jobs, right? If you want to run the long jobs, okay, to communicate the delta flow. But MapReduce, if you go for, you will get the full data flow, which is an overhead. But if you go for MPI, these things you can avoid. Similarly, you can see here, this is another implementation of MapReduce. You can say that is nothing but an iterative MapReduce programming paradigm, which we call it as twister. The same thing we are doing. We are giving the static data into the configure file. Then we are applying the map function. Then we are applying the reduce function. Then we are doing the combine one. Combining the values, whatever given by the reduce function. Finally, we close it and write it in a particular file. Or if you see the architecture, so this is the twister, which we call as a twister. That is nothing but for iterative MapReduce programming paradigm. And if you see the architecture of twister, it is taking our publisher subscriber broker network, okay, and this network is connected to various worker node, and in each and every worker node, how you are communicating? You are communicating to their MapReduce daemon. Okay, you can see there is a D here. D indicates the daemon. Okay, while like you are partitioning the data and you are giving one pieces of the data to each worker node. Each worker node is having a map function and reduce function, so they can compute their work. Okay, or they can read the data or write the data from the file system, and finally compute the work and return the results. Right? So this is one, you can say, iterative MapReduce programming, because this process is repeated until unless your entire thing is completed. Now, if you compare four different systems, one is your MPI, another is your twister, third one is Dryad, which we will discuss in the next class, fourth one is your Hadoop. If you compare this, here you can see MPI takes less time in comparison to others. So if you calculate their performance in terms of average time for 16 iterations, okay, in terms of second, you can see MPI is a faster one, then twister, then Dryad, then Hadoop. So twister is much faster than the traditional MapReduce. And twister distinguishes the static data which is never reloaded, because static data will never be loaded, but dynamic data is changing every time. So twister is able to distinguish the static data which is never reloaded from the dynamic delta flow that is communicated. That is the advantages of the twister. Now, if you compare the twister with the two things, that is Hadoop and Dryad, LINQ, so you can see these two framework is more than 10 a factor of 10 slower than the MPI. That's why people are in the parallel programming. I told you in also very beginning, in order to solve the matrix multiplication, people are using MPI, because MPI is faster in terms of communication. Right? Now, let us compare the threads and process structure of four parallel programming paradigm at runtime. I have taken four paradigm. The first one is your Hadoop, Yahoo Hadoop, right? Next one is called as Microsoft Dryad. Next one is your MapReduce. Next one is your MPI. If you compare these four parallel programming paradigm, you can see here Yahoo Hadoop and Microsoft Dryad is meant for short running processes. Short running processes, right? But MapReduce and MPI is done with long running processes. Okay. So if you go for Yahoo Hadoop, they are using your disk HTTP protocol, that HTTP protocol, right? Hypertext transfer protocol to do the work. Dryad uses one of the system called, that is pipes. So in operating system we have studied, there is a pipe, okay, there is a sender and there is a receiver. Sender writes something and receiver read that particular thing. If somebody is writing something in the pipe, then only other person can read it. right? And MapReduce uses our publisher and subscriber bus to do the work, right? And to ensure that there is a asynchronous distributed renders was synchronization, right? Synchronization should be maintained. Similarly, MPI uses also message exchange or synchronization in order to keep the same data into multiple nodes, right? Similarly, if you compare the Hadoop with Twister, with the same factor you consider, that is your total running time. Who is taking more time? Hadoop is taking more time in comparison to the Twister. So here you can see this figure, you can see that iterative algorithms are found in the information retrieval. Information retrieval applications, if you see, the iterative algorithms are there. And Twister is working better in this case in comparison to the Hadoop. Like you know that whenever you are searching something in the Google, the page, the web page which is having highest visited or highest count or mostly referred is coming first. That is called as your page rank algorithm. This page rank algorithm is nothing but with a kernel of iterative matrix vector multiplication. If you want to run this algorithm, okay, run on the public clue web dataset. There is a dataset available that is called as public clue web dataset. If you want to run this page rank algorithm into that, and independent of the size, you can see Twister is about 20 times faster than the Hadoop. So we are comparing one paradigm with another paradigm in order to say that which one is better in which case, nothing else. This is a case study kind of thing. No need to remember these things, right? Only you see which application the Twister is better, which application the iterative MapReduce is better, right? Now come to the Hadoop, right? The next discussion is our Hadoop. So Hadoop is an open source implementation of our MapReduce, coded and released in Java. If you want to learn Hadoop, you have background of Java rather than the C that is used in the previous paradigm, and by released by Apache. And the Hadoop's implementation of MapReduce uses your Hadoop distributed file system, which we call as HDFS. And if you see the core of Hadoop, Hadoop is having two different fundamental layer. The first part we are taking the MapReduce engine. Second part we are taking the HDFS. That is called as Hadoop distributed file system. Again, the same concept we are using, the MapReduce concept we are using. There is a map function, there is a reduce function, and we are doing the work. You will see detail in the further slides. Okay, so Hadoop distributed file system is a distributed file system, right? Inspired by our GFS, that is Google File System, that organizes the files and stores their data on a distributed computing system, or they are processing the stored data in a distributed computing system. Okay, and if you see the HDFS architecture, you can see HDFS is a master slave architecture, and in this architecture you can see there is two nodes. One is your name node, which contain your metadata, and you have a set of data node, right? There is a single name node. There is a single name node. If you remember the previous case also, I told you there is a single master and number of data nodes, which we call as your slaves or worker. And HDFS also splits that file into a fixed slice block, that is 64 MB, and stores them on the worker node, that is our data nodes. The size is fixed, that is 64 MB. The mapping of blocks to the data node. Who is going to assign the work to the data node? The name node. Name node is the master, right? So it has to partition the work and give to the individual data nodes.
Dog.
So next is your HDFS feature. So distributed file system has requirement. One of the requirement is how you can achieve a better performance, how you can get a better scalability, how you can get concurrency control, fault tolerance, and security requirement. Okay, as the systems are not present in the applications, you have to deal with these things. Where fault tolerance, sometimes it is failed. But if you go for HDFS, HDFS does not need all the requirements. Like if you see an example, security has never been supported by the HDFS file system. All the functionalities may not be provided by a single paradigm. Like you can see here, HDFS is not providing the security features, but it is better in the performance because the files are stored in various name node using, files are stored in the data node using the name node. Similarly, HDFS fault tolerance. So here it is saying the hardware failure which is occurred in the HDFS is a common one rather than an exception. If there is a hardware is failed in the HDFS, we cannot call it is a failure because you have to ensure that we have to think that there is a definite failure in the in the hardware. Why? Because the system, okay, the system is consist of a group of nodes, and each and every nodes are participating into the HDFS system. So at any point of time there is a failure. So it is considered it is not considered an exception. So we assume that there is a failure. And Hadoop considers the following issues you can see to fulfill the reliability requirement of the file system. The first one is called as a block replication, which you have seen that we are using fork system call to do it. So HDFS stores a file as a set of blocks, and each block is replicated and distributed across the whole cluster. The reason is that if a particular hardware failure happen, you can retrieve the same thing from other nodes. So generally this replication factor is set as 3, but as for the user wish, you can increase or decrease whenever required. Next is your replica management. In replica management, we are storing replicas on different nodes, right? That is located in the different racks. If you store in the different rack, if one rack is failed, because data center consists of a set of racks, right? In each and every rack, your servers are there. If you are storing in the more racks, then more reliability will be there. But if you see the communication is high. But storing in the same rack, if the same rack is failed, your data will be lost. So you have to compensate both things, right? So sometimes HDFS compromises its reliability to achieve lower communication cost. Okay. The next one is in order to check that whether a particular system is live or the particular system is not connected to the main node. So we have a heartbeat message. So heartbeat message is periodically sent by the name node to the data node in order to know that whether the data node is live or not. Just like you are in the network subject we have studied, there is a ping message. We are sending this ping message to check that whether all the nodes are free or not, whether they are live or not, they are active or not. So receipt of a heartbeat implies that the data node is functioning properly. That is the reason of going for this one. And each block report contains a list of all blocks on a data node. And HDFS high throughput access to the large data sets because you are dealing with a set of files. So HDFS is designed for the batch processing, not the interactive processing. You have to submit a batch of files into the HDFS and you will get the result. Not an interactive processing. You are giving a file, you are getting the result. You are giving another file, you are getting the result. So it is dealing with the batch processing instead of iterative processing. Again, the block is divided into 64 MB block. So two advantages you are going to get. The first advantage is the list of blocks per file will shrink as the size of individual block increase. If the block size is increasing, the list of block will be shrinked. That is the first advantage we are going to get. Second one is by keeping the large amount of data sequentially within a block, HDFS provides fast streaming of the data. The processing of the data, okay, is faster. That is all.